Rob Brown here on this Friday, August 30th with Brendan Martin, executive producer. We're putting together the master list. Got a great roundtable for you today. Doug Dean, Frank Duffy in Las Vegas, Dave Tompkins, somewhere, South Carolina, the Low Country, I don't know. And Kevin Skarbinski will join us about 15 after from Birmingham, one of the best writers around. Let me say this. Watched a lot of football last night, Brendan. Missouri. Yeah. Hey, how about them getting that line covered 50.5? They won 51-0. Think those guys in Vegas, they got a crystal ball, Brendan. You know they do.
Yeah, crystal ball or a whole bunch of people in their back pocket.
That's right.
Just saying. Just saying.
Let's
get our pen and paper together. We got people loading up in the green room. We got to get rocking and rolling. So
and smash that subscribe button, bottom right hand corner.
Smash the subscribe button. Do all that good stuff. You know what to do.
Here we come.
It's Friday. If you don't know what to do by now, if you're not ready, if you're not excited, tomorrow is college football, week 0, week 1, whatever the hell you want to say. There's literally, where's the booze? Literally something wrong with you. Let's go.
You gave too.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown here with
Yahtzee.
Hey, Frank is out in Vegas. I hear the cha-ching, cha-ching. Dave Tompkins with the easy to roll hat somewhere in South Carolina. I'm guessing Doug Dean in Birmingham, Brendan Martin in Marion County, and Rob Brown here in Memphis. Watched this last night, man. Missouri covered. Come on, the guys on TV, just come out and say it. Everybody wants them to cover. Don't say there's some people out there. It's like saying have an adult beverage. It's called a cold beer. Quit skirting the issue. Frank, I'm sure there were a lot of people where you are. By the way, did you say hello to Don Rickles on the floor? Hey, look. Lot to cover today, man. God, it's awesome. Arkansas 70-0. I'm going to start off with Doug. I was there in 2010 against Arkansas State when Cam Newton had a busted play and ran it up 71 yards for a touchdown. That Taylon Green guy, I've just watched him and talked to him at media days, saw him in person. He's a legit 6'6 plus from the Dallas Metroplex. Bobby Petrino, man, I don't care who you're playing. When you score 70 points on every possession, you scored a touchdown. Bobby Petrino is going to be an issue this year just because he's got a quarterback. I'll start with you, Doug, and then y'all bounce it around.
Absolutely. First of all, Dave Tompkins, rumors of your demise were greatly exaggerated.
Welcome back.
I appeared on a few midweek shows, so I'm kind of, sneaking around kind of like Colonel Flagg from MASH.
Listen, I'm a fellow greedy capitalist. I got no criticism for you, Dave. You got your priorities right. And Duff, my God, Duff is bringing the heat with the backdrop there.
Noise. Where are you, Duff? I mean, it's like someone singing behind you. What's going on, brother?
I'm here at the beautiful Park MGM here in Las Vegas on the casino floor. When LSU comes to town, the party just keeps going. It doesn't matter what the hour. It's fun.
And Duff,
it's 6 o'clock.
Duff, I know this tweet has found its way to you, but I thought everybody should hear LSU is going to play real football this year. I can do this.
It is going to be fun. What is that? It's 6 o'clock in the
Will Campbell, offensive tackle, says we're not going there to go to Caesar's Palace. We're going there for a fist fight. That's what an LSU fan wants to hear, right, Dustin?
Absolutely. I concur. And look, there was almost a few scuffles last night, and you talking about worried about Missouri covering. There was a couple of good old boys with St. Louis Cardinals hats on last night in the sports book, just dying for that last score. And let me tell you, when the Minnesota kicker shanked that kick, all hell broke loose.
Wait, Frank, I got to ask you, what are the people out there in Las Vegas? What's the money doing on Florida and Miami? Florida and Miami in the swamp tomorrow. It'll be 173 degrees with the wind chill. Miami's had one double-digit win season in the last 20 years. It's time for the Gators to put up and put these guys away. But what's Vegas think?
Yeah, well, the line really hadn't moved that much out here. Not that I could tell. It's pretty much stayed the same. The line that really moved is the LSU line. The LSU line went from 6 to 4.5. So money has absolutely come in on USC. So and look, what do they say? The rubes are normally wrong. So I like being on the right side of this. But the Gators. This is a pivotal game for them. We've said it numerous times on the last 6 months leading up to this.
Oh yeah.
Florida's season really has to get off on a good start. And again, they had that great game against Utah a couple of years ago. Remember when everybody was down on them, and they had that great game. I think Florida's going to come out and play a really good game. Whether they win or not, I got no way to know. But they better come out strong. And they better be playing for Billy, because Billy cannot lose that locker room, not on the first game. They've got to have a good performance, win, lose, and draw.
Duff, you got most of that right, but I'll just add to it. My God, this is it's way too early to say loser leaves town, but both of these head coaches really need this win. And I like Florida a little because I respect the swamp and the environment. Those fans are hungry, but that's going to be, to me, the marquee game until you guys play. Sunday, Frank, y'all play?
Yes, Sunday night. Yeah, we're the only game on.
All right, Dave Tompkins, got to throw one at you over there in your backyard. Clemson and Georgia. Had a great conversation yesterday with Coach Ellis Johnson, who's been a defensive coordinator in the SEC for many years. I met him through Gary Harris, our friend in Tuscaloosa. And Ellis Johnson, Coach Johnson, will be on with us Monday morning to kind of break down what happened over the weekend. But, boy, talking to him, I thought I was talking to Brother Oliver or Kevin Steele. Those are some smart defensive coaches. Clemson and Georgia. People are forgetting Matt Luke is coaching that offensive line for Clemson. Make a case for Clemson covering or winning straight up in Mercedes-Benz Stadium tomorrow.
We'll look back at Dabo and, go back to, his upbringing and then his mom sleeping in the bed with him at the University of Alabama.
Yeah.
And his coaching career has been a tale of two Dabos. And, the best of times and then the worst of times and then the national championships and now where he is. And so the question for me is it continued, slide to irrelevance, or are we going to have yet another renaissance, Dabo renaissance, and he covers and perhaps wins? I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, Dabo has a history of, being down for the count and then getting up off the mat and getting winning a technical knockout and then start winning fights by knockouts. That's kind of his DNA. And I think it's going to happen one more time in his career. I just don't know when, perhaps this weekend, but I doubt it.
Georgia's got Etienne, the great running back, is out for the game, but they just throw 2 or 3 more 5 stars in there, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I didn't know ETN was out.
Suspension.
Yeah. Here's what's crazy.
His deal. Okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, and that's the one. But Montrell Johnson should be back tomorrow.
No, he's playing.
Yeah. Okay. And that's been fun to watch. All right, look, we're gonna hit a lot of lines this morning on this Friday roundtable. I got this many smart people.
Before it gets crazy, Mr. LSU. Before I just want to get this in. If you love your producer, which you should, by the way, 100 on black for me would be great, and then we'll split it. All right.
All right, you got it, buddy.
All right, thank you.
Hey, we might go up and do that live in a little bit.
All right, perfect. And then send it. Yeah, I love all of that idea. Is the greatest idea in the history of time.
This show brought to you by
TV.
Caesar's Palace.
Yeah, TV. Well done.
When's the first cocktail in Sin City, Frank? Or have you already had one?
Well, we've been here 2 days. I've had a lot, but I'm about to go get my Irish coffee to start today off in a little bit.
Hey, light that on fire.
Duff,
Daddy hasn't even slept already. Okay, he's been up for 48. He's going up to the high rollers room here in a minute.
Hey, Duff, I know the LSU faithful are there in throngs. Are you seeing a lot of USC fans?
Very little. Very little. Now, of course, with all due respect to them, it's only a 4-hour drive in the desert, so I don't expect them to come pretty early. But there are a lot of LSU people here. I would think that before it's all over with, we got about 35, maybe 40,000 that come, 25 or so thousand that'll probably be at the game. And by the way,
wow.
You see your buddy Matt Mosconi, if I'm saying that right. Tell him we want him on the show soon.
You got it. If I see Matt, I will absolutely do that. And hey, look, how about our buddy John Hartwell last night with UL Monroe getting a nice win to start the season? I gave him a congratulatory text, and he was kind of fired up. So, yeah, there's a lot of Louisiana people here. The craps tables are full. The bars are even fuller, and we're getting our money's worth out here in the desert.
Well, look, and Ron Higgins said the other day, at least 30,000 LSU fans going out there. Yeah. So it's more. And look, that's a testament. Look, we love college football. Let's bounce some lines together again. When I got this many smart guys together, another one, Notre Dame, Texas A&M. I'll start with Doug and then go to we'll do Doug and then Frank and Dave. And I want to get y'all's thoughts because Riley Leonard from Fairhope, Alabama, quarterback at Duke for Mike Elko. Now he's at Notre Dame. Who has the advantage, Elko on Leonard or Leonard on Elko? Doug Dean.
Yeah, that's kind of Darth Vader and Luke.
I am not.
Who's your father? But I don't know. That to me, I know that Petrino looked good boat racing a directional school last night, but I don't know. This to me, I think Notre Dame is one of my sleepers to not to be one among the 4 teams that get a bye in the playoff, but to make the playoff. And I freely admit my flagrant Notre Dame is my second favorite team bias. And Notre Dame is famous for letting us down when the media hypes them up in August and September.
Yeah,
I want to ask the Aggie fans and that team and Elko to show me. It's not that I don't want them to have a good season, but I'd like them to show us in a really big game against Notre Dame. But I think it's going to be a 4-quarter game, and I'll be watching more with interest about has Petrino adapted offensively to what the way the game is played now, and is that evident? And then, how is Notre Dame for real or not? So whoever comes out of that with a loss is going to be dealing with a lot of derision and, oh, here we go again. Aggie fans always say we're loaded. We got Petrino now, and I don't need to give you the resume on Notre Dame. They're more about talk in August than championships in December.
But Petrino's at Arkansas now, not at A&M.
My bad. I know what you
metaphors
meant. Mixed, but Elko.
Yeah, Elko. It's confusing.
Is Elko going to be the answer at A&M? And I just don't know. I like the guy. He did some great things at Duke, but that one will be a fun one to watch.
All right, before Kevin Skarbinski comes in, and I'm going to say, Doug, that defensive line for Texas A&M, even with one stud probably going to start for Bama that transferred from A&M, Isaiah Rakes at Auburn, who's 8 feet, 475 pounds, he's going to play, and Walter Nolan at Ole Miss. Doug, Frank, real quick, your thoughts on A&M Notre Dame, and then yours, Dave, and then we'll bring in Kevin Skarbinski from the Magic City. Frank, you're muted. Okay. Let's go to $75. We'll go to Jonathan Winters in square number 7. Dave, give us your thoughts.
Okay, all right. Well, Notre Dame in the 1973 Sugar Bowl beat Alabama 24-23, and I disappeared to my room for about 2 weeks and never came out except to eat and go to the bathroom. I've hated them ever since. That said, they beat us 13-11 the next time, and then I think 7-0 in Legion Field. That's nightmares now. But I think Marcus Freeman's a good coach. This is year 3 for Marcus Freeman. I think Notre Dame's going to have a good year. I agree with Doug that they're a sleeper to make the playoff, not the top 4. And I think they make a statement in College Station and come off with the W.
Wow. All right, Frank Duffy, you were muted there, so let's get your thoughts real quick before we go to Kevin.
Yeah, and I'm going to try and find a place that doesn't have so much high music in it. Look, I absolutely, my take on Texas A&M is you got to show me. Look, I appreciate the fact that they might have a stable coach in Elko, but look, Jimbo had a lot of talent. And there's just something dysfunctional going on in College Station. And as far as I go, Notre Dame, in my opinion, is going to be hosting, get this, a playoff game in December in South Bend. Can you imagine how nasty that's going to be for an Ole Miss or an LSU to have to go on up and play the Irish up in South Bend when it's like frigid? But I do think that Notre Dame is going to be the better team. I do concur with Doug. I think it's a close game. But look, I think A&M, it's been such a dysfunctional mess for the last 2 to 3 seasons that I think it's going to take Elko a while to get this going. And I just don't see them having a good season at all. I think the surprise team is really going to be Notre Dame when it comes into December.
Well, it'll be fun to wait. Bring in Brendan, if you'll bring in Kevin Skravinsky whenever he's available. I know he was trying to get his camera set up, get his thoughts. I look at Mike Elko. He's been at A&M before, so he kind of knows the landscape out there. But yeah, they have one double-digit win season at A&M in this millennium. Miami has won in the last 20 years, and you think about that Miami brand from '83 to 01, 5 national championships. And what did they play for? Another 5 or 6 that they didn't win? But you know what? They have never won the ACC championship. I'll tell you the program, speaking of the ACC, watch out with Brent Pry. He's a Frank Beamer disciple at Virginia Tech. That'll be a fun one to watch. Okay, I'm going to throw it while we're waiting on Kevin. Doug, another one. I gotta get your thoughts and of the games that are coming up this weekend, and no one's really talking much about it though. Is Texas and Colorado State. Texas, good program, a lot of players. Is the next week they've got Michigan coming up. How good, real quick, do you think Texas is?
I have a lot of respect for Sark, and a year ago this time he made a statement. Not many people picked Texas to be able to thought of as a finesse team. I don't think that's fair. The game bore it out against Alabama. To go into Bryant-Denny against the GOAT, Nick Saban, and do what Sark did speaks for itself. They were starting to get ready to play in the SEC. Oklahoma's going to have to show me that a little more. Maybe that's unfair, but Oklahoma's also got a far more difficult schedule the first year in the SEC. So I very much like Sark. As we talked about with Ken Capps, I guess a week ago, they've got to overcome the loss of a key running back. But Sarkisian, more than most, is capable of shuffling things around. Maybe they allow Quinn Ewers to throw the ball more. And that if you've got Sarkisian, that doesn't scare you. Like a pass to a short pass in the flat, or those quick slants, or a pass to the tight end, those can be like running plays.
Yes.
They're pretty safe when you trust your quarterback. So I'm Sarkisian. I think he's going to make the playoff. And to me, and I can't wait to hear Scarbo's take on this, it's almost like if you're a 2-loss team, are you sure you want to play in the SEC championship game? I think I'd let somebody else go play Georgia, most likely Georgia, in the bins, and then watch this plot. When the pecking order is decided, the highest ranked team gets to decide where they want to play after the bye, and there will be some fun chess plays, chess moves going on with, like, send a team where it's going to be more difficult to win vis-a-vis the home crowd. If it's in is it Arlington, I think, where if Texas goes there to face Georgia, advantage Texas maybe if those two teams meet.
Yeah. Well, I like that take. Frank, throwing it at you. Oklahoma, they got Temple tonight. Their first game of football as a member of the SEC. They don't play their first conference game till September 21st at Gaylord Family Stadium against Tennessee. Chris Plank, OU Football Network, will be on with us again Tuesday morning. Jackson Arnold, they said, Dylan Gabriel, go to Oregon. We got to keep Jackson. Otherwise, if they didn't, he'd be transferring somewhere, maybe to Utah.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. I was going up in the elevator yesterday here in Vegas, and I had my LSU hat on, and this nice couple got in, probably about, in their upper 40s, 50s, and they were like, "Oh, LSU, oh man, yeah, y'all have a good team always, and it's gonna be a fun time this weekend, and y'all go have a great game against USC." And we talked the entire way up, and we're like close to the top floor. And it was LSU, 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 LSU. And then when I got off, they sheepishly kind of looked around as the doors were closing. We're OU fans. I'm telling you what, it was the most bizarre thing. I was like, there is trepidation of OU fans coming into this conference, man. I mean, look, it's
hilarious.
You can sense it. You can just feel it. Look, I use the analogy when Doug was talking about Texas. I had the vision in my mind of the movie Saving Private Ryan when they're in the town and they're about to defend it, and all you hear is the squeaking of the German Panzer and Tiger tanks as they're outside of town, and you can hear it, and it's like building up that fear. It's like the music in Jaws when you don't see the shark but you hear it.
Yeah,
that's what I'm seeing with Texas. I don't have that feeling with Oklahoma, but I can hear the Panzer and Tiger the tracks squeaking on the outskirts of this conference. They're going to hit the ground running. I think Oklahoma's going to play well. Oklahoma's schedule is just too brutal. Besides Florida, it is the toughest that's in the conference. I think Texas is going to go through teams like a freaking hot knife through butter. And I think it's going to be Texas, Georgia, and Ole Miss. And to your point, Rob and Doug, y'all have said it before, the odd man out might be the benefactor of not having to play in Atlanta, especially if they've got 2 losses on them. As a 2-loss team, you don't want to go limping into Atlanta. You don't.
Yeah. Let me reference that, Doug. Remember the Auburn team 2017 beat number 1 Georgia, ULM.
Oh, yeah.
What do you have to do? You beat number 1 Alabama, number 1 Georgia.
They would have been better off not having to go to Atlanta and give Kerryon Johnson a chance to heal up. Dave Tompkins.
If you have to play an extra game, a playing game in the playoffs, would you if you're Alabama, would you rather get a bye and play Georgia in Atlanta, or would you rather sit that one out and play Boise State in Tuscaloosa?
The latter. Okay,
Hey,
and everyone
Dave, Dave would know. All of y'all will have an opinion. In 2017, Dave, if Auburn does go to Atlanta and manages Kerryon's healthy, and we manage to win that one, is there a rematch of the Iron Bowl in the national championship? That would have been insane.
Yes. I mean, it's certainly conceivable.
No doubt. No doubt.
And back to Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they lost some people on defense, and isn't their running back out, and they've got some personnel issues.
Yeah.
But from a talent perspective, a top to bottom talent perspective, the only team they face all year who has arguably more talent is Georgia. And that game's at Darrell Royal.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
So you look at the Texas schedule, and they should be favored, at least from the beginning, looking toward the end, in 11 of the 12 games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? What I like, what you just said about Texas. Ken Capps will be back on with us Monday, and he told me this at media days. He said, Rob, they're not used to these just giant hyper atmospheres. Couple of times a year at DKR, they get up for it, but you got 102,000 people there that are used to the meal being served, a 6-course meal. They're going to have to fight for their seats going forward. And that's what he said. They've just got to get used to. As Houston Nutt says, 2 things I love what he says about. I used to tell these kids every day out there in practice, these best days of your life, best days of your life. The other one is, he goes, I tell all these Texas and OU people out there, I go, it's the grind. He goes, it's every week. He goes, well, you played Georgia at home. Good for you. Now you get to go on the road to LSU, or you get to go to the swamp and play Florida. I'll tell you right now, it's the grind. Houston Nutt, that guy, he's so passionate about this, but he's right. And I'll just say this. Let's do this real quick on the predictions. I want somebody, okay, Frank, Doug, and Dave, let's do it real quick. And I hope Kevin can get with us. He may have aliens may have abducted him. Let's get predictions real quick on, again, Florida and Miami. everybody, and again, I don't think it's Doug's right. It's not a loser leaves town game, but I'll start with Doug, Frank, Dave, a prediction on Florida and Miami tomorrow at 170 degrees.
That one game. Do you think I'm stupid enough to pick Miami when my producer says go Gator?
All of a sudden, Frank's off the screen.
Hey, listen. When we're talking money, you can't bet with your heart, right?
Not to mention that I really, really like the great Buddy Martin. No, in fairness to Mario Cristobal and that team, I've never been a Miami guy, but God knows they had a big run, and was it in the '80s? Jimmy Johnson and Schnellenberger, and imagine if Schnellenberger had stayed put at the U.
Oh wow!
But we would have had a problem for a while. But so I think Miami. I think it's a 4-quarter game, and I bet either coach would take that right now, wouldn't they? And have a chance because if you're competitive, you're fine. You can come out of that game. You want to win it, especially Napier, because wins get harder and harder on that Florida schedule with every passing week. Yeah. But I like Florida. I think I see Florida. I don't know who Brendan can tell us about the reliability of their place kicker, but I think Florida is lining up.
Kickers are good.
Lining up for a makeable field goal with no time left. I like the Gators in a really close one.
Frank?
Well, I remember Buddy and I were very bullish on the Gators when everybody was down on them when Utah came to town 2 years ago. And I remember how incredible the swamp was. Everybody had gotten geeked up. I like Florida only because I'm a homer, but I'm telling you right now, Billy Napier cannot – again, it's not live or die, but he really doesn't want to lose this ball game because – that is a slippery slope that he will be on. So I'm going to tell you, the Gators are going to give Miami all they want. And like Doug, I'm not really sold on Miami. I think Miami has a lot of fundamental issues as well. I think there's a cultural issue at Miami. Miami's just never gotten that right fit. And I don't know. I don't know if Cristobal's the right guy. So I'm going to take the Gators in a close one. But I think what's going to happen is you're going to have the defense of Florida has got incredible talent players on them. That's if they can keep this into a under 24-point game, I think the Gators will win in a close one.
Yeah, I think back to Al Golden, Darwin Award member, when he wore a long sleeve button down
white shirt
and a tie on the sidelines in Miami. I mean, that's a living brain donor right there. Dave Tompkins, your prediction in the swamp tomorrow.
In the swamp. We've talked about Florida's, first 5 game schedule, then their, next 7 game juggernaut. I don't think Florida's going to go into Tennessee 5-0. I think they're going to get tripped up once, but I don't think it's this weekend. I think they get it done against Miami.
All right, Brendan, want to give us your prediction, a score?
Well, yeah. First of all, I'm the first person to jump on the Gators last year after going to Utah.
No doubt.
I jumped down. I was upset as a Gator fan, watching that game from the press box and seeing how the sideline was completely dysfunctional. I was not happy about any of what was going on, but whatever. That's last year. This year, has Florida, we do nightly shows about this. I'm sure people are tired of hearing me say things like, has Florida gotten better personnel-wise? Yes, they have. Have they gotten bigger, faster, stronger? Yes. Has defense gotten better? Yes. Coaching gotten better? Yes. Defense should be much better this year. Yeah. Secondary should be much better this year. Bigger, faster, stronger, right? Offensive line was a problem, right? Has that been fixed? More experienced guys are now taking place. Guys are not hurt anymore, and they're coming back to roost. Got a center who's now got a whole year. Slaughter is a great kid, and also he's a very talented guy. Now you got Graham Mertz. You got, Mr. Quarterback, of Texas, who's just waiting in the wings to do a 3rd and long or whatever. I think all of that being said, Billy has no offensive coordinator. He's got no scheme. His coaching staff is still the largest in the entire, I think, of all of college football. And there's a lot going on those sidelines. Now we've got, all of these things start to play around. Now you've got swamp magic. Yeah, it's true. But here's the thing about swamp magic. Here's the thing that people want to talk about. It's less magical at 3:30 in the
Yeah,
afternoon than
yeah.
105. Okay,
Yeah.
the LED lights the LED lights that are so cool at night, they don't see those, right? You become in the swamp. I'll be on the sidelines tomorrow. Let me tell you, it's hot down there. So, and Miami doesn't,
Yeah,
they know how to deal with the hot.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
so here's the thing. I'll get to it. You've got to win the state of Florida. That's, was it Spurrier used to always say, go out and win the SEC. Go win your, let's do some winnable goals. Right now, this year, you need to win the state of Florida, right? You got to beat Central Florida. You got to beat Miami. You got to beat Tallahassee or Florida State. You've got to go down and play in Tampa. Like, you've got to win that as your focus. So tomorrow's game, Miami, is a huge setter for the gauntlet of a season that's next to impossible, right? And we've said this before. I don't really put a lot of weight in bowl games like SEC 1-6 into because
Not a bit.
for a million reasons. Because in season, right? Talk to me about being in season, staying healthy, and running the gauntlet to get there is a whole different process. So, I think we are going to see a much better, improved Florida Gators. I think Miami's not as good as everyone thinks. They're going to have their front seven, which is their best asset in defense. It's whether the strongest.
Sure.
And they're going to come after that offensive line. And they're going to come after Graham Mertz. So I think we're going to see I think Florida's going to win, but I think they match up pretty well. And I think it's going to be a shootout to some degree, but I think Florida ekes it by a touchdown.
But they do need experienced Mertz. They do need Mertz.
Absolutely. No question. He's one could,
Absolutely. He has got to be playing well. Yep, absolutely.
Let me say something real quick, folks, about Coolmore Logistics and Transportation. Anything that you need shipped across the country, from Gainesville to Seattle to the Costco headquarters. You could be shipping oranges, LTL, containers, vans, steel coils, steel pipe that you use like ductile pipe, seed, anything. Coolmore Logistics and Transportation. Hit that QR code. John Dicken, Robert Weaver, and the crew. Nobody will outwork these guys. They put the word out that a load's got to be shipped. They send it out. Their phones blow up. They get the drivers. They follow through. And also, get out this weekend. Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company in Collierville. They're selling duck heads, guys. They've got more duck heads than I've seen since the 1970s in one store. 50% off on the pants, trousers, and slacks. And if anyone can tell me the difference between pants, trousers, and slacks, it's Doug Dean. And Doug, I want to ask you something about a team dear to your heart, my heart, and a lot of hearts, the Auburn Tigers. What's going on down there? I like that. I love what you sent me this morning about Hugh Freeze. Psychology, man. You know what? Junk in, junk out, positive in, positive out. I like what's happening down on the plains.
Yeah, sort of to set up a quick comment and welcome everybody. The more objective minds on the show that don't call themselves an Auburn fan, I'd love their take as well. But my pet peeve with these pundits in spring, summer, and you get into August and they're making picks, it's so rare as I listen to them and read them that any of them break out of what I call really lazy intellectually. I call it linear thinking. By that I mean they look mainly at last year. They don't even take the time to dig into who did they bring in talent, which weaknesses have been fortified and improved. And so I find it really lazy when pundits look at Vegas. The over and under for the Auburn Tigers is 7.5. I'm not saying Vegas is wrong. That's why they have all those big, beautiful buildings out right there. But I do, and I'm sure it's not, rosy enough looking at the season to think Auburn possibly has 10 wins in them. But I think that if you study the schedule and you look at that wide receiver, just the wide receiver room, and coming out of camp, what the coaches are talking about, a suddenly deep and talented front. I think if you get into games with Alabama and Georgia, it's a problem because you're going to be forced to play your third rotation guys, and we're still weak there. But I think this Auburn team will surprise. As in, get into early November, they've got 9 wins in them, and so I'd say the same thing about a lot of the other forecasts. I get it that the easy thing to do is to pick Georgia in linear fashion to just be unbelievable again. But go look at Georgia's road schedule. Kirby would be the first to say it's going to be a gauntlet when you're going to Alabama, to Ole Miss. I'm leaving somebody out.
And Georgia ain't used to this, brother. They're not used to this schedule.
Yeah, and
Texas.
Show me that life after their tight end, the best tight end I've seen in
Brock Bowers.
Brock
Bowers. I need to one of those mental alert pills this morning, Rob. But
Audrey forgot it was Friday. Don't feel bad.
Quarterbacks get really. They have a pacifier, a play that always bails them, a player that always bails them out. So there's some unknown. Georgia's still loaded, and they're probably the safe pick to win it all. But I think this season, more than most, will make my point about you need to study it harder to start predicting the 12-team playoff, at least the order of the 12-team playoff.
Yeah, and last week, guys, remember the bold predictions we made? I picked Memphis to make the playoff. I mean, it's going to be Memphis, Boise, or Liberty are going to get the votes. But
Saban did the same thing on game day in Ireland. Said the exact
I got
same
that
thing.
text on the Spring River. We caught 219 rainbow trout. That was fun. And I saw that kind of reception was in and out. But by the way, really excited. I was with Wendy Level, and I said, do you know Chuck Level, the great musician from Birmingham? Keyboardist with the Stones and the Allman Brothers and
Allman Brothers
with Pink Floyd that he did in Pompeii in 2016. Ironically, and Wendy and Johnny Haygood were up there from Alabama fishing with us, both Alabama guys, good guys, great guys. And Johnny said, that's the first outdoor concert they've had in Pompeii since 79 AD. And I said, he goes, when the volcano erupted and buried the town. But man, Chuck Level, big Alabama fan, college football fan, going to have him on in late September. He said, I'm honored to be asked. I'm like, I think it's the other way around. But then again, by the way, Darren McFadden's son, Darius, is I think a junior at Briarcrest High School. Y'all ought to see this guy run. You're like, is that Darren or Darius? He's got those long strides.
Speaking of Arkansas, that's the big game for Auburn, in my opinion. I've said before that Auburn's like a momentum stock, and every few years they get momentum. And if they can beat Arkansas, go to 4-0, and then go host Oklahoma the next week, go to 5-0. Obviously, they got Georgia coming up next, and that's going to be tough. Yeah. But that might establish sufficient momentum where they go on a roll and go 10-2, make the playoff, not have to play in the SEC championship, and win, host a game in the playoff and go to the Elite Eight. It's possible, but I think it all kind of begins and ends with Arkansas. They absolutely have to win Arkansas and then have the momentum to go the next week and host Oklahoma and beat them.
And Rob, guys, a scary, interesting game.
Brilliant point.
You can deride me if you want. I'm sturdy enough to take it. But this weekend, Vanderbilt and Virginia Tech. I mean, Vanderbilt's bringing that quarterback that gave Auburn fits last year, Pavia. God, if I assume he's starting, but I want to see, can Vanderbilt start to have a pulse? And if not, let's show them the Greyhound bus out of the SEC.
Relegation.
As much as we'd like to, that's never going to happen. They're in for good. But I tell you what, if I see one more scaffolding or one more crane hovering somewhere over that miniature glorified high school stadium,
it's the Skinner box.
I'm going to have a fit. Look, I do want to address Auburn because I think Auburn is really the interesting team this year in the SEC. And to use vernacular that my good buddy Dave will appreciate, it's like a good thoroughbred. You guys have gotten much better breeding and much better livestock in the last year and a half than you had on a Potato Boy. But the problem is Auburn's got to bring their morning game to the afternoon game, meaning that the workouts on the track look nice, but you got to bring them when the gate opens in the afternoon. And I think Auburn's got a shot of doing that. Look, we've all said
if you can get to 9-3 in the SEC, if you can get to that, you've got a puncher's chance of punching your ticket to get into the 12-game playoff. And that's very doable for Auburn. That's only 1.5 more than these guys that, bought this beautiful leather chair that I'm sitting in out here. So I think Auburn is definitely in play. They've got to get this game. And I'll tell you, the critical one is the one that we're going to have Bengal 1 at. I agree with you, Dave. I think the Arkansas game will set momentum. But that Oklahoma game, the eyes of college football are going to be on the loveliest plain in a village on the plains come that
September 28th.
Yep.
And
not to mention Tuscaloosa that night.
Yeah.
So far in his career, Hugh Freeze has been a trainer who has consistently won with 2-year-olds in 5 and 6 horse races. He wins his 2-year-olds. Now we're going to the 3-year-old. First race, he wins. It's a 6-horse race. It's a sprint. It's okay. But now you're going to the Santa Anita Derby.
That's right.
Yeah. It's 9 or 10 horses. And you're going up against Bob Baffert and Todd Pletcher. And what are you going to do?
And Dave, he had to drop back to Delta Downs and Evangeline Downs, the off tracks in Louisiana at Liberty, to come back to be able to go to Churchill and to run them. He's got talent that he didn't even have, even in the bogus recruiting year that Ole Miss had, which you can almost see the money trail on that. There was cash flying all around.
Never.
But here's the thing. He doesn't have those restraints now. He can wheel and deal, and the guy is a wheeler and dealer. Look at Auburn; they're 4th ranked in recruiting. It's Alabama, LSU, Auburn, Georgia, all chasing Ohio State right now. We're the top 5 in recruiting in the 2025 class, and Auburn's getting players. I'm telling you, are you going to convert them
Everyone
on
loves
Saturdays?
that.
And you have to be able to win those big games. That's the issue with Auburn. Good Auburn, bad Auburn, Jekyll and Hyde.
Yes.
The product of your own malevolence. Cleaning the gun, shooting the foot. But if Auburn if Auburn can beat Oklahoma, I'm telling you, Auburn's got a damn good shot of making as a dark horse into the playoffs.
I agree.
Doug.
Well, your man Siskey, Rob, remember that was on.
Yep. Tyler Siskey.
He's been around Hugh Freeze, and he said Freeze is dangerous when he starts getting momentum like that. The confidence kicks in, and certain coaches have that style, and I don't disagree with Dave's analysis that the Alabama modern era, at least under Saban, maybe not under Mike Shula and Mike Price, but they were there. Berkshire Hathaway, give it to Alabama, long-term buy all the time, even now, in my opinion, because, there's a margin of error when you've got the 12-team playoff, and no one is going to care. Show me a fan that cares that we lost 2 games. If you get in the playoff and win it all, it's all forgiven. But Auburn, Hugh, I'm not going to name him, but a prominent former disciple player has been to a lot of the practices and scrimmages, and he says, Doug, I haven't seen a culture like this that Freeze has installed since going back to the Pat Dye days, and that makes you excited.
Yeah. And that's those workouts in the morning. I'll throw something at you.
Y'all have all talked about how important, and Dave pointed it out, and so did Doug, the importance of Auburn. They have to beat Arkansas. But it's really like the movie Black Hawk Down. Remember when the guys in the Little Birds, the 160s, went out there and they popped a couple of rounds in the engine of the leader of the bad guys over in Mogadishu, and they're interrogating that guy, and he's just smoking a cigarette, and he goes, a bunch of Arkansas boys coming over here think they're going to change the world. He goes, what's happening today is simply shaping tomorrow. How you play in every game, I don't care who you're playing, and shapes how you go into practice that week. And when you're winning, you think you're going to keep winning. When you're losing, you think you're going to keep losing. You're running around waiting for the other shoe to drop. And the psychology of this, I think Steve Spurrier, guys, didn't he use a sports psychologist? And the bottom line is Kevin Skarbinsky's internet is out is what the problem is. I don't know. He must have Cox Communication because that's where Brendan and them have all those problems in Marion County. But
that has ruined my day. I was looking forward to Starbucks.
Yep.
I know. Well, and Scarborough.
Hargrave sucks here.
Yeah. Let's do this. Let's get to the schedule now. Okay. Alabama, Western Kentucky. That's not a CBS game, Club and Baby Seals, but they ought to win.
Hold
that
on,
game.
Rob.
Yeah.
You know who's starting for Western Kentucky? TJ Finley.
TJ Finley. That man.
You can't make this up.
Hold on. LSU, Auburn, Texas State, and now Western. He's a 7th-year junior, Doug. Am I correct?
Finley? Yeah, I mean, who can forget? He was one wussy Brian Harsin call in overtime to call 2-point conversion play, and he had the play in his damn back pocket.
Yeah.
And, I will go to my grave saying Finley would have cashed in on that, and Brian Kelly showed Harsin how you do it in that spot against a team that's on top of the mountain. You
go for two.
Fans will forgive you if you don't make the 2-point conversion with it. But Finley, of course, they're going to have tough sledding against Alabama. But it feels like he's 45 years old and on his 5th or 6th team.
Do you realize if we were going back to play Auburn again this year in our usual game, the House of Horrors, that it would have been 2 trips ago, not last trip when I hung out with Doug and we hung out with Doug. The trip before that, when y'all shellacked us, that was TJ Finley playing quarterback. That's
sure was.
That was 5 years ago. That's how
he led Auburn to the comeback win over Georgia State, Doug. Remember that one?
Hey, look. I was watching Max Johnson last night a little bit when he was playing for North Carolina before he got hurt. I'm like, there's LSU quarterbacks all over the friggin' world. I mean, for 40 years we couldn't develop a quarterback. Now we got them all over the damn place.
All right, here's Kevin Skarbinski, man. Scarborough, I don't know if you've got Spectrum or Cox or whatever it is, but man, internet issues aside, welcome back, man. We're glad to have you back on the college football roundtable. How you doing?
We finally have a brain.
Thank you. The names of my internet provider will be changed to protect the guilty. So I don't think it's operator error. I've done this a few times. So
yeah.
I don't know what the heck was going on, but glad to be with you guys at last.
Kevin, we're going to give you the rest of the show if you want it. What do you think is the biggest 1 or 2 narrative stories this college football season?
Oh gosh, hard to narrow it down to 1 or 2. It's just there's so much unpredictability. I think this year, I think it's harder to know exactly the way this is going to play out with, the new conference alignments, unbalanced schedules within conferences. Somebody in the SEC likes Texas and doesn't like Oklahoma very much, apparently, given the schedules that they were handed for their first run through the conference. The 12-team playoff, et cetera. How many losses can you have and make the playoff? Obviously, it'll be multiple, I think. So, I'm excited because it's not predictable. Nick Saban is doing Verbo commercials and looking like the angry old man. So really, he wasn't acting in that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Daddy time in the tub. So it's just what's Kalen DeBoer going to do? Is Auburn going to take a leap forward? Is LSU going to be able to not lose 4 games, win a bunch of games, but not lose 4? So I don't know. There's just a lot of unpredictability. Georgia's the most constant thing left in the SEC. It's still amazing to me that Kirby Smart is the only coach in the SEC now, out of 16, not 14, that's won not only a national championship, but an SEC championship. I can't say conference championship because Kalen DeBoer certainly did that in the Pac-12. But Kirby's the only one in the league now, the only head coach that's won an SEC championship. That's pretty amazing when you think we used to have 4 or 5 guys at a time that had won national championships in the league. So who's going to step up? There's a void there. Is it going to be Sark at Texas? Is Hugh Freeze again going to get Auburn back to respectability? There's so many unknowns that
Add Lane Kiffin.
make it more fun, I think, when you're not – look, for the last, 15 years, we've known Alabama was going to lose no more than 1 or 2 games. We knew they were going to be in the SEC championship game more often than not, and then it became Georgia as a constant as well. Now it's more fun. It's unpredictable, which is what college football should be.
Kevin, you got to add the subplot of Lane Kiffin and this Ole Miss team too.
I don't know if you guys saw that. It was a really good in-depth piece by Chris Lowe on ESPN.com about Lane and how he's, supposedly grown up and matured, and he's not the same guy he was at Alabama. I hope for his sake and for Ole Miss's sake that's true. He is 49. He's going to turn 50 after the calendar changes to 2025. So is he truly content where he is? Is he truly focused on the moment? Is he living where his feet are, as Nick Saban likes to say? We'll see. Can they handle the expectations? Let's just say this. They didn't overburden themselves with the non-conference schedule.
I think the ultimate bellwether game between the AFC and the NFC in college football, the Big Ten and the SEC, is not Alabama traveling to Madison, is not Texas traveling to Ann Arbor. It's this Sunday in exactly where Frank is in Las Vegas. Here you have two teams that aren't expected to win their respective conferences, sort of two at-large bids in the NCAA Big Dance going against each other. And I think this game is really going to be the bellwether of conference versus conference. So of all the games this weekend, I'm most excited about LSU and USC.
Yeah. Offense for days. It just matters which defense comes up and makes those couple of stops that they're going to need. These are both the two last Heisman Trophy winners came from these two offenses. That's a little bit different for us. We lost our offensive coordinator, but it's a different type of offense with Nussmeier. But points will be flowing in this game. It'll be a very interesting and an entertaining game to watch. But as well as I do, if you want to make it far in college football, you got to have a defense. You got to be able, and defense is travel. And we're going to see what we've got. Everything that I'm hearing out of Baton Rouge, out of our two-a-days, coming out of the Ponderosa, they say Harold Perkins Jr. is back to freak mode. Hopefully they won't destroy him and put him in places where he can't be effective like they did last year. It's all going to come down to the defense, but it will be an exciting game. I promise you. Get your popcorn ready. We're the only game in town on Sunday night, and I'll promise you, you'll be hearing me and 35,000 other LSU faithful in here.
You know what else
Kevin,
you get, which is so exciting to me, is it's not uncommon. It's pretty normal for 2 or 3, sometimes 4 teams to really be captivating interest early to mid-November. But that might be 10 or 12 teams that still have a legitimate shot to make the playoff, get hot, and even win it. So it all adds up to us being very engaged with turning the TV on much farther into the fall. I might be going bow hunting a little less than I normally would when Auburn's sitting at home and hoping to be bowl eligible. So I think that more than anything else, and the fairness side of it, Florida State won't go through what they did last year. We'll be arguing that the 12th and 13th teams, Dave or Rob.
But let me say this, and all of y'all are making some of these salient points. Kevin put you on the spot. Isn't it the 13th, the 14th, the 15th teams, the ones that don't get in, what makes us talk about college football all year round? And, that I think that's what it is. And then when we go to a 14 playoff, it'll be 15, 16, and 17. It's always the ones that didn't get in. But I'm going to throw this at you, Kevin. Look at Mike Norvell. I'm a big fan of his, but damn it, you got to get over what happened. You didn't get in the playoffs. Your team quit on you against Georgia. They did not show up against Georgia Tech like you would have thought. They were an 11-point favorite. Isn't it dangerous? Gus Malzahn did it after the 2013 national championship loss. We got to be 13 seconds, not better, but butter. B-U-T-T-E-R. Got to be butter. Looking out of the rearview mirror is dangerous, isn't it, Kevin? You got to look ahead.
Absolutely. And I saw a great stat. I didn't verify, but it rings true that Florida State spent all this time, telling everyone they're too good for the ACC. And after that loss to Georgia Tech, in their last 58 ACC games, they are 30-28.
Exactly.
So, this is not Bobby Bowden's Florida State that finished in the top 4 for 13 straight years. That was in contention every year, that you knew was going to be a championship caliber team year in and year out. They're far from achieving that status. And they're acting like they've earned that status, but no matter what happened to them last year, I don't care if you're Michigan, you won the national championship. You've got to turn the page. That's what the best programs do. That's what the best coaches do. They don't dwell on the past. They don't dwell on yesterday. Learn from it, move on. And doesn't appear they've done that yet.
And their fans, if you saw it on game day, had spent all their time in preparation on how to organize to trash and overpower with screaming Kirk Herbstreit. And I admit, I did not mind Herbstreit getting grief because I'm not a fan. But that's not the psychology any head coach wants going into a big game.
Yeah. What you think about
and, hey,
this.
guys, look. Let's also, Rob. Look.
Yeah.
And no one's talking about Georgia Tech. How about giving Georgia Tech and Brent Key some credit? Brent Key's a good football coach.
He is.
From Trustville, Alabama. Played at at Trustville. Spent time at Alabama under Nick Saban. That guy could be one of those up and comers that we can keep an eye on. That may be destined for bigger and better things. No offense to Georgia Tech, but we're all talking about Florida State, and they deserve any criticism they get, but let's give Brent Key and the Yellow Jackets a lot of credit for the way they prepared. They were ready to play that game. They had a smart game plan. They executed. They were more physical up front. All the things you really need to that will sustain over time if you can sustain those things.
Coach Saban complimented them pregame, and that proved to be he came short of. He didn't pick them to win, but I can forgive that. FSU's got players. But that also a subplot. And Brent Key also, when he played O-line at Georgia Tech, beat Georgia 3 straight years. That had to be a while ago, right? And so and then in the game, this is going to be something to watch this weekend. The abysmal management by the referees of the new running clock and the play clock.
Yeah.
And Siski pointed out, Rob, that during that game, both teams only had 7 possessions. So, and it was like between 5 and 8 seconds before the referees would start the 40-second play clock. So you add that up on an 8-play drive, that's a full minute that you're losing in the game. It seems like nothing, and it affects both teams, but the referees have got to figure that out.
Wait, let me throw this one at you. 5-0. You know what that is? That's Brent Key's record since he took over at Georgia Tech against ranked ACC opponents. And Kevin, you're right. Georgia Tech, I'll be over in Atlanta here next few weeks to see Mallory. Down on the flats, as Tony Barnhart calls it. They've got money, but they have to fight. And Frank, you know this. They have to fight apathy at Georgia Tech, and it'd be fun to see. And Brent Key, he is the Georgia Tech guy. I'm going to throw this one at you, Kevin, and then bounce it around. Your thoughts on that game tomorrow? You got 2 boys now, Kaiser and Cannon, down there at Florida. Are they going to that game tomorrow? I hope they are taking a cool vest or a Tiger Air cool hat.
Tiger Air.
Like that.
Get your Tiger Air, boys.
But we grow up in the South. We know it's hot.
Yeah, that's what whenever they complain when they're home in the summer about how hot it is, they said, you live in Alabama. You were born and raised in Alabama. Of course it's hot. It's July. It's August. No, they're ready to go. The Utah, what was the Utah game? Was that 2 years ago? Anthony Richardson, the home game against Utah. They both were so exhausted. Cannon was still in high school, and he went down for the game. And they said they were so drained afterwards that they just went back to their apartment and just completely collapsed. It was so hot and steamy and an incredible game. And, of course, Florida won it at the end, had an interception in the end zone to preserve that victory. One of the biggest victories under Billy Napier, if not the biggest victory.
We talked
about he needs another one. He certainly needs another one tomorrow. And look, this is where it really matters, right? This is where people are going to year 3. And by the way, guys, I was working on a column the other day. There are 3 programs in the SEC that have had 3 straight losing seasons. Vanderbilt,
Auburn and Florida,
naturally, and the other 2 should not be in that category. That's Auburn and Florida.
Yeah. Well, let me throw this one to y'all as well. Looking at the schedule tomorrow, you got Texas, Colorado State. That's a mid-tier game. Southern Miss and Kentucky, mid-tier game. Throw this one to y'all, everybody, anybody. What is a story right now that no one is talking about because Doug was right. I mean, I count on Doug's early morning texts, these intel briefings, and about the clock. We know that's a problem. But what I am noticing is the numbers in the portal. I think it's slowing down somewhat. I think people are starting to listen. Like Jordan Hill talks about Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann and Muschamp. Hey man, you're a 2 here. That's right. You can hit that portal button. Stay here. You're more likely to get developed. You may be a late draft pick or a free agent pick, but if you leave, let me assure you, the problems you have here, you're going to have the same problems there, and you're not as familiar with your teammates. You don't know them. You don't know the coaches. You're better with what you know versus hitting that button just because, people are telling you that you should be playing more. I think it's slowing down.
Kevin, first shot at that.
Well, I saw a mention, I guess it was maybe at halftime or before the Colorado game last night on ESPN, that there are two players for Colorado State that turned down major NIL money to go to a higher profile program because they believed that they had something special building at Colorado State and preferred to stay there. It's nice to see those kind of stories. Look,
Yeah.
and you have to judge each case individually. For some guys, transferring is the right move. And we've seen it where guys have thrived in a new environment. It's not for everyone. And I don't think it should be your default mode is when something goes wrong or doesn't go your way, you put your name in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
And I think there's been too much of that.
One kind of the poster child of, I agree with everything you said. You have to admire Arch Manning. A lot of QBs, and I respect, and not all of them have the advantage of the generational wealth of the Cooper Manning and a Manning family. So I'm not going to be hard on a kid that's transferring, hoping to get some NIL money in many cases so he can help his parents be able to come see him play games. But I think that too many of them, maybe it's slowing down, Rob, are bolting just because they're not first team. Or they want to see it when they throw their name out there if they get an offer and they get $100,000. To me, this year, if you're an Ole Miss fan, the thing that's really going to be put to the test, if Ole Miss aspires to only having 1 or 2 regular season losses, and that's it, it's playoff or bust if you talk to any Ole Miss fan. But they are portal heavy. Lane has embraced that. The rest of our programs are the developmental league for Lane's Ole Miss team in some ways. So how does that work when and Kalen DeBoer had to go in the portal through no fault of his own, heavier than Alabama normally does because guys like Caleb Downs are driving a Lamborghini out in Columbus, Ohio. So it will be interesting to see how good is Kiffin at having a good locker room when you've got that many players transferring in.
Good point.
Well, and Ohio State, you mentioned Ohio State. They're going to be another example of that. That could be the best team money could buy. But what happens if they face adversity? What happens if they don't steamroll over everyone? They end up against they're struggling in the fourth quarter against the Purdue, which is not uncommon for Ohio State, for example. How do they react to that?
I'm told 10. Ohio State has 10 7-figure NIL players.
Wow.
Well, think about Texas A&M, that class they signed, 3 years ago? You had juniors and senior starters making a drop in the bucket compared to what that freshman class made. Jimbo lost that locker room.
Yeah, he did.
I'll tell you, Frank, I'm going to throw one at you, LSU. Garrett Nussmeier. He stuck it out. Miles Brennan, I just went back to make Eggs Benedict over there with the family business. But I'm just a believer in anything worth having in life is worth fighting for. I tell it to my kids every day, and now they go, Dad, they don't want to give you a compliment, Kevin. You know this. You have boys and all, but they're like, yeah, you're right. But I respect the hell out of Garrett Nussmeier, what he's doing.
I do too, and you're going to see a pro-style quarterback. Look, he's got a gun for an arm. The only knock on Garrett was that he was a little bit of a riverboat gambler. He played a little bit too loosey-goosey with the ball. He put it up in a lot of pressure situations and it would get picked. But the difference is, instead of just being the guy who got to take his dad's car out for a Saturday night and was lucky enough to get it back into the garage, he's now the owner of the car. He's got to go get the gas. He's got to go get the oil. He's got to make sure that the tires get rotated. And that's a different thing. And we're hearing again, all you can do is just kind of put your ear to the ground and hear what's coming out. But just in his work in the scrimmages, he's a lot more controlled in that process. And if you can harness that arm, as you know, as a quarterback, but then be mental about it. And look, we've had some great, quarterbacks that have transferred in. We've gotten 2 Heisman Trophy winners. One came with a national championship coming in from other schools. So we're not opposed. We'll never bad talk the transfer portal. But having a kid that has stayed in the system, stayed behind Jaden Daniels for 2 years, we feel very confident in him in the next 2 seasons at LSU, having these 2 years of eligibility. I think you're going to see a very poised, pro-style quarterback, and I'll even go as far as saying you'll appreciate this, Scarbo, being a Pennsylvania guy. I'm hearing tales. It's a lot of Danny Marino in the way that he's approaching this offense and the way that he conducts himself out on the field, and how he can hit those 15-yard NFL-style outs that Marino used to zip around all over the place. That's the comparison that we're hearing.
Okay, let's do this.
High praise.
Kevin, at the schedule right now in the SEC this weekend, we know the big 4 games. Georgia, Clemson tomorrow. Notre Dame at Texas A&M. LSU in Las Vegas against Southern Cal. I mean, that one, and then Florida in the Swamp against Miami. Your thoughts, and we got about 7 or 8 minutes before we go, 10 minutes. Your thoughts on those games. What's really jumping out at you? What needs to happen for certain coaches?
Well, first thing, and the big, right off the bat, we get Clemson and Georgia at 11 Central Time. Is Etienne going to play? I don't know if Kirby has said that.
He's not. He's suspended.
Have they said that?
Yes.
Okay.
He's required to be suspended by Georgia.
Well, he's required to be suspended. No, remember, he pled down from the DUI. The rule is the DUI is an automatic suspension, but he pled it down to a lesser charge. So as of
everything I've read is that he's out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's out. Yeah.
Okay. Because I think it was one of the. I was really curious. It was going to be one of those cases where Kirby would say, "Well, just what I just said. Well, the rule is it's a DUI, but it was not a DUI when it was adjudicated, and so we made a decision to play him, especially since they have they're a little thin at the running back position. Apparently,
hang
with
on
an
one
injury.
second. I'm gonna ask an expert. I got a Georgia guy right over here with an SC cap. Oh, you didn't have the Georgia thing on? Do you know if Etienne is out? Is he suspended for Georgia?
He's in Vegas, Kevin, I like the look in your eyes, like you're going to question it until you are completely sure.
Hey, he had a Georgia shirt on, so I thought I'd get a little Etienne scoop, but he also had a USC hat on. He's been listening to all my LSU talk, sitting on the other side of this conference room.
All right. But, I mean, it's a big question, and we'll see at game time. But,
and also, and look, Dabo's taking a lot of heat, obviously. He's got his old school approach. He's not a fan of the portal, certainly. So we'll see. Is Clemson going to be competitive? I don't think, and it's just amazing to say of a program that won 2 national championships and played for a couple of others in the last 10 years in the 14 playoff era, that they would be happy to be competitive with Georgia and not get stomped the way Oregon did a couple of years ago. Bo Nix's first game there. So I'm curious to see how competitive Clemson is. If they're back to being a team that can make a run at the playoffs.
Guys, I got to tell you, Clemson has not been the same since we dragged them up and down the Superdome floor in January of 2020. They have not been the same. I think we took their masculinity from them. I swear to God, on that night, they came in, they were yipping. Joe Burrow reached into their chest and pulled their heart out and showed it to them. they ain't been the same.
Yeah,
and,
the game
and Dabo did not play the portal game well, and I think you're seeing the fallout of his stubbornness, that unwillingness to play the game. I think you're still seeing it.
A game nationally that we haven't mentioned, certainly all eyes will be on Notre Dame in College Station Saturday night. Penn State at Virginia, 11 a.m. Saturday.
God, yeah.
I mean, Auburn fans will remember those are rowdy ass fans when you go to West Virginia, and they'll burn sofas, whether they win or lose. So, and they're rough. They're kind of rough fans. I don't mean that derogatory. I guess I do mean it derogatory. But if Penn State is not careful, that one could get tricky, and then all of a sudden they're clawing and scratching to stay in the 12-team playoff talk.
I agree.
Hey, Doug, there's only a couple of places I've been to games where it felt a little scary.
Yeah, exactly.
And I went to that Auburn West Virginia game, and that game in Morgantown had that feeling. You just felt a little edgy, like these people are a little nuts, and they're a little. I never felt that at LSU. I've never felt it anywhere. Well, I did feel it at Georgia a time or two, but where they keyed my brand new. What did I have early in my career? I had a brand new silver car. Made the mistake of driving it with Alabama tags to an Auburn Georgia game. And nice key mark from all the way down the driver's side and back side door.
The difference is, West Virginia, you said, Kevin, he's the wordsmith on the show. Scary was the perfect word when you go to West Virginia. The difference is you can get your ass whipped in Baton Rouge. You can get your ass whipped in Gainesville if you're trying to. If you're being obnoxious and you got it coming. And I've had nothing but fun in Baton Rouge. Frank knows that. But, man, when you go to West Virginia, you can be behaving and they're still coming at you.
Yeah, I watched the Hatfields and McCoys, the documentary on Netflix. It's just – but they are passionate people. And the one thing, when Auburn played up there in 2008 on that Thursday night, Bill Stewart was the coach at that time. They had that great quarterback, Pat White, from Daphne, Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
And
great quarterback.
Yeah, I just think about that, and they were really, really, man, they get it going every now and then. You know what's cool is what all of y'all have just been saying, just all the subplots and the storylines out there in college football. I got to ask you, Kevin, real quick about Tennessee. We saw Nico Iamaleava in that bowl game. But damn it, here's the thing. Typically, those Big Ten teams come down here in January to play an SEC team. It's their Super Bowl, and the SEC team, like Auburn against Minnesota, that roster for Auburn had 63 players on it. I did the research. That were either a 4- or 5-star player. Minnesota had 4 players, 4-star on that entire roster. Everybody else was a 3-2 or who's this guy? And they just killed Auburn. But I just think about this. Tennessee, what we saw out of Iamaleava against Iowa. Iowa's offense, God love them, is so bad. It's almost haunted. It's so bad. I mean, just they've got to find a way. If they had an offense to go with the defense, they'd be better. Tennessee, a playoff-worthy team this year?
I don't know. And that's why you really have to discount bowl results. It's really, and this goes way back. Which team really wants to be there? Which team is motivated? Which team wants to win the game? I mean, I don't like the phrase generally when you hear, well, one team wanted it more. Because generally, both teams want it pretty badly, and they've worked really hard. But there are times when it is clear that one team wants it more, and I don't think you see that anywhere the way as much as you see it in bowl games. So obviously, is he the trigger man that's going to make that offense run the way Hendon Hooker did, for example?
Yeah.
And are they going to throw a lot of points at people? Are they going to be, what is Tennessee going to be? Are they going to be the team they were a couple of years ago? Or are they going to be more of a, or are they going to be more of a, 8-4 type of team? Are they not going to be consistently good on defense? Are they going to rely too much on offense, as Frank, as you were saying about LSU? At some point, you got to play some defense if you want to get in the playoffs. Certainly, if you want to win in the playoffs.
On the bowls too, add which team's elite players don't even play in the bowl game.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, now it's about who's on the roster. Yeah, who shows up in uniform that day.
I do think Tennessee's step back continues. I do. I think they had a very brief window 2 years ago, and they were expecting to build off of that last year. And frankly, last year, you'll ask a Tennessee Vol, it was a disappointment. I think it continues. I do.
I'm going to say Iamaleava compared to Joe Milton III out of Pahokee, Florida. He couldn't throw the short and intermediate pass. I think this Iamaleava guy is talent-wise, he's scary. He's so good. But and also, I know people are going to get caught up in the hype. And SEC Network this morning, guys, there's only been 3 quarterbacks who in their debut game had 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns. And that is last night, obviously, Taylon Green against UAPB, which is not a real tough opponent, obviously. And then Hendon Hooker for Tennessee and Cam Newton against Arkansas State. I'll never forget talking to, one of Auburn's linebackers from Pelham, Alabama. And I was talking to Jake's mother, and she just said, in practice, Jake Holland, remember him out of Pelham? And by the way, when you go to a game at Pelham, you better have your hiking boots on because it is straight up from the parking lot. But she goes, Jake's been talking about that new quarterback, Cameron. She said in practice, the boys are like going, man, his knees are up in your chin, in your face when he starts high stepping, but the coaches won't turn him loose. And they said everybody on the team's going, I can't wait to see what this guy does again in a real game.
And he couldn't complete a pass in A-Day game, Rob, if you remember.
Yeah.
Couldn't
yes, and
complete a pass.
He was just written off, But, man, I'm telling you, getting all y'all together. Dave had to get off. Wall Street called. But getting all y'all on here together, and Brendan Martin, our producer, is just unbelievable. And Kevin, he will work anything out. And I'm so glad you got to be on here with us.
Brendan's a star. I appreciate his patience and his help this morning.
I have the best executive producer in the world. I mean, his patience with me, and then I've got Audrey Mildred going to town. And we're going to try to get Mildred on the show with you, Kevin and Doug, soon. I'm reaching out to Mildred. Age, obviously, she doesn't get around like she used to. That's saying a lot. But, God, how jacked up are all of y'all, though, about this weekend and college football? It just, all the portal and the NIL goes out the window, doesn't it?
The sports books here are going to be off the chain. It's going to be tomorrow is going to be must watch from morning all the way through. We are literally ensconced, putting it down. You can walk right up to the window, but there's so many storylines. It's so fascinating.
Doug, thank you. I know you got to roll. Awesome show.
Let me just interject quickly. I'm walking on Frank. I'll buy you a beer later, Frank. But
you go,
before
bud.
I have to dash, I want to memorialize this. Not that bold a pick, but nationally, I see not a single undefeated regular season team. And in the SEC, I don't see a team with fewer than 2 regular season losses. If there is one, I guess I would pick Georgia. And I don't mean to slight good Bama fans. They've certainly got the players to make me a liar on that. But I just think we're going to see, and I think it adds up to being more fun. That there's not this dominant team that we're watching go undefeated with great ease for the most part. It's not that I want other teams to lose, but I'd like to have a log jam in early to mid-November in the SEC with 4 or 5 teams that are vying to be at least 3, maybe a 4th can sneak in. Do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, and then the uncertainty of who's going to be in the SEC championship game. Because you don't have divisions now, so you probably will have more teams in contention for that game. And how important, that's another thing that is going to be interesting. How important are those games going to be? Are they going to be more important for one team than the other? Is one team going to be set to be in the playoff? You would think both. If you're taking the top 2 teams from the SEC, you got to figure they're both pretty well set as playoff teams, but their spot in the playoff field may not be secure in terms of positioning. So you win the SEC championship game, maybe you move up a spot, maybe certainly you get the championship and you get the automatic bye. And I don't care what I've seen this theory, guys, that it's good to be number 5 to get that home game and then play no. It's better to play fewer games. Let's be honest. Come on. The
Kevin,
fewer games you have to play to win the championship, the better. Okay.
Kevin, I'm dreaming. I'm maybe delusional, but wouldn't it be a fun Thanksgiving week? Wouldn't you like to cover an Iron Bowl that pits 9-2 Auburn, 9-2 Alabama, and Kalen DeBoer's inaugural Iron Bowl is a must-win game over the arch rival to make the playoff?
Yeah.
Well, that's an easy answer. Having covered an 11-0 versus 10-1 Iron Bowl, 11 years ago, that turned out to have the most improbable, fantastical, whatever word, I'll make up words about the kick six. Still, it was the most unbelievable thing I've ever witnessed in person on a football field. I'd love to see something like that. If they're both those teams in contention, would be fantastic.
Well, the word that came to mind in
guys?
Louisiana was
Thank you,
glorious. Thank you, Doug.
But Doug already made his bold statement of the day. So we're going to close out with, I'll start with Frank, your bold statement. My bold statement is this: the ease with which the Florida Gators dispatch the Miami Hurricanes in the swamp tomorrow.
Okay.
I think people are, and here's the thing. I say this about Florida, and I'm on the Buddy Martin show, honored and blessed to be on there one time a week, sometimes twice. I just think that Florida's got more talent than people want to give them credit for. And I think Billy Napier, here's the deal. It's year 3. If you look at Nick Saban in his second year, look how he turned it around from 7-6 to 12-0 regular season. If you look at Pat Dye's second year, a big talent gap. Coach Bryant was on the top of his game. What did Coach Dye used to say? Well, that last couple of years, Coach Bryant, he'd be leaving practice early over there at the yacht club in Northport, having him a couple of toddies about 5:30. So, and Pat Dye closed that gap, that class with Bo Jackson and Tommy Agee and Tommy Powell out of Greenville, Alabama, one of the best players in Auburn history. It's just really cool. But Frank, let's get your bold statement, and then Kevin, and we'll wrap it up.
Well, finishing my thought, what I was saying about the big board and being in Vegas and everything, the reason I was saying that was with 12 spots, there's more excitement. There's more opportunity. There's more things at play, where in the past with 4 or 2, you really didn't have that. That's the cool thing. Everybody's fan base has so much more to be interested in. That's why it's going to be that exciting. My bold prediction, I will tell you right now, the central casting thought of how people would be afraid to come into the SEC, I'm going to tell you right now, Oklahoma is going to have a rough entrance, and their eyes are going to be like silver dollars the whole time. Texas is going to roll through like a hot knife through butter all the way to the SEC championship game. It's going to be the tale of 2 new entrants to the SEC.
All right, Kevin. And also, Kevin, let people know how they can follow you. Keep up with all the great work.
Yeah, and like I said, Frank, the reason for that is completely different schedule that Oklahoma and Texas have in their first run through the SEC. Yeah. Not sure how that turned out that way, but didn't go too well for the Sooners, at least on paper. Right. First of all, people can keep up with me. Follow me on Twitter/X at Kevin Skarbinski. Read my columns twice a week in the Birmingham Lead. Subscribe to that, birminghamlead.com, LEDE.com. Also, I'm starting a Saturday television show next Saturday on the local CBS affiliate, which is missing the SEC, as you can imagine. They're doing Big Ten games now. Yeah. So an old colleague of mine, Scott Griffin, we're going to be doing a show every Saturday at 6:30, talking about the games that have already been played, looking at the night games to come. It'll be a lot of fun. So I hope people in the Birmingham area will check it out.
6:30
and it's not
in the morning or night?
Live, but you can watch it 2 hours afterwards on their website, CBS42.com here in Birmingham. So hope people will check that out. My bold prediction for tomorrow is Miami's going to go from this to this, from to boo-hoo.
Yeah. Well, listen, man.
And they will have no sympathy from anyone outside of the Miami fan base.
I don't think they will. And look, man, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We have the best guests, the greatest producer. Support all of our sponsors and our guests. Help grow their brands. That's why we do this show, man. We're all on one team with one great goal. That's to celebrate college football and the greatest student athletes in the world. Go pull for your team, man. Have a great weekend. Happy Labor Day. We'll see you Monday. Coach Ellis Johnson bats in the leadoff position, talking about the weekend games. Boo-hoo to the U.
Go
See you Monday.
Tigers. Go Tigers.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shopp's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.